Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. It's great to have you with us on this Sunday. We're brought to you by Extreme Exteriors and American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency, broadcasting from the big watts of our home station here from the Concierge Landscape Studios. Mm-hmm. And our next story here comes from Ridgeland, Mississippi, out of Madison County Journal from April 10th. And apparently there is a judge who is weighing on whether or not an association has the authority to say, we don't want rentals here.
We're prohibiting rentals.
We're prohibiting them. And the judge is saying, maybe you've overstepped your bounds and you can't have that authority.
An owner in one of the associations that's been renting his home has gone to court over the issue.
That's right.
His homeowners association passed a ban, a new regulation saying no more rentals. And they say it's because they were having trouble with rental homes within their association. Mm-hmm. They weren't adhering to the covenants. They weren't keeping up the homes. They weren't doing maintenance.
Yeah. Now, the board member said that since they've adopted this from 2006, they said they believe that covenant violations have dropped significantly, and so they see that is a good reason why they want to have it.
And he said the vast majority of the homeowners support the no renting ban. But let me ask you this. Are those good reasons to keep the rental ban in place? The fact that they think it's working and that most homeowners want it?
Yeah.
Is that enough?
Yes to some, no to others, I would say.
I say no.
Really?
Those reasons are not good enough for adopting a rule that was passed in violation of their documents, for example.
Well, I would say I don't think what I don't think is a good rule for a good reason is the idea of I don't think that they've accurately connected the dropping of violation letters that they're writing to because of no renters in their association.
I was looking at a bigger picture.
Oh, were you? Okay,
yes,
I'm sorry.
I was. Because
what were you looking at?
I was trying to get to the fact that they need to know what their governing documents say before they pass a rule like this. If their governing documents say you cannot, pass rules that conflict with state law or with governing documents, then they need to know that. Did they pass this rule in compliance with their governing documents? If they did not, then the fact that they all want the rule is not a good enough reason
you're right. So
to keep the rule, is what I was getting at.
You're right.
Yeah.
So on a bigger picture here, there's a lot of things we don't know.
That's
Number
right.
one, they could have governing documents that are correctly stated in the covenants and declaration and in their governance that says we're not going to allow for rentals.
It doesn't sound like that's the situation because it sounds like it's a new rule.
Okay, but if again,
if it was,
but again, we also know that people will make rules without really taking a look at what their governing documents say, right?
That's true.
So the fact that they've made a new rule could mean that they didn't look that it was already
the governing
there.
documents might say you can rent your home in this community. So if that's the case, then the board does not get to make a rule that contradicts that.
So let's parse this out. If the governing documents state that no rentals are allowed, then you believe that the judge, looking at the evidence, would say it would be upheld?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Then it becomes an issue of enforcement. Apparently they haven't been enforcing their governing documents up till now. But if that's what the documents say, then yes, this rule should be upheld.
Let's take a look at the subsection here, and that is if it's true that a vast majority, and by a vast majority more than a supermajority, more than 3/4 of the people say we don't want rentals.
Yes.
And they want to go about making a change to say no rentals will be allowed. Do they have the right to do that?
I believe their governing documents probably give them the right to do that, but
yes. And you're
they
right.
have to follow the correct process to do that.
Exactly. And so if that's what comes out from
Yeah.
from this. And again, we don't know. All we know is that it says that the county chancery court judge Cynthia Brewer heard 3 hours of testimony
Yep.
from both sides this last Monday morning, and is now taking things under advisement to come back.
She said she's gonna study the facts and the law and issue a finding. What I fear, because we've seen this happen all over the country, is that she will study the facts and the law and then make a decision that overturns their governing documents. That's what I'm afraid of, is that because we've talked about this over and over and over again. Homeowners want to breach the contract that they agreed to when they purchased their home, and they're getting support for that in the courts and in the legislatures. So that would be the worst case scenario to me.
Yes.
Is if she reviews the documents, learns that this rule was not passed in the correct manner, but upholds it anyway.
So what you're talking about is legislation that comes from the bench.
That's right. And in fact, you gave me a phrase before the show. An activist judge
or a constitutional judge. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I fear the activist judge.
Yes, I do too. The activist judge says, well, let's not talk about how we've set up the law or
the contract
because that, and to me that's so important.
Yeah.
You know, they're saying let's take all that aside, and how does it feel to me? Just because the judge have the authority to make a ruling.
I don't like this. I don't think it's fair. I don't like rentals either, and the majority of the homeowners want this rule, so I'm going to overturn the governing documents.
And when you have when you have an activist judge, you're going to have someone who's going to do things based on feelings.
Yeah.
A constitutional judge is going to be one who's going to say, we have things already in place.
That's right.
They were established in place because we established what is fair. If I could use an analogy, it would be like playing a game. You know, one of the reasons why you enjoy playing baseball, football, any sport, you know the rules.
That's right.
One of the things that always became very frustrating as a kid is a lot of times when you're playing neighborhood ball, halfway through the game, the rules change.
Nobody likes that.
And that's not fair, right?
Nobody likes that. That's a great analogy.
Did you go through that?
Of course.
And then all of a sudden, that's not fair. That's not right. Why? Because things are different now. How do I react? I've based everything in my decision and everything that I've done up till now based on
the rules,
on this agreement, and now you're throwing that out.
That's right. That's right.
That's one of the reasons.
It ain't right.
Yeah. That's why I agree with you. I don't like to see an activist judge. I would like to see one who believes in the Constitution, who believes that the responsibility of the judge is not to create new legislation, but to simply say what has been created. Now, if the judge looks at everything and says it is unclear, according to the state statute, it is unclear according to the way you've worded things in your governing documents. And you have to throw it back and to say, clean it up, to throw it back to the legislature and say, write a law. But unfortunately, what happens today is we have legislators who want to dodge the bullet because they know that a majority of people don't like what they want to propose, but they want to get their way done. And so they would rather see a judge who will
make the decision
because it gets them out of
the hot seat.
Out of the hot seat. They say, oh, well, that's the law. But the purpose of the judge is to take a look and say, what does the law say? Because that's what we're trying to do, is try to come up with what is fair with what was everybody's understanding.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. We will need to follow this to see if we have an activist
what the outcome is. Yeah.
And again, we're just speculating here on
That's right. We have no idea how she's going to come down on this. And I can't let this story go without saying a couple things about rental properties within homeowners associations. I would argue against this rule. I think that it's important to allow people to rent out their real estate. And we have not had a better illustration than what's gone on the last few years.
Yes.
People are unable to sell their homes, or they're underwater on their homes. They have to move. They need the flexibility of being able to rent their home.
Yes.
Now, if renters are causing problems in your association, that's not necessarily the renter's fault. To me, that's a big red flag that it is not being managed well or right, and you're having a problem with the owner of that property. That's where you should direct your communications, your violations. You should put pressure on that owner to properly manage his rental.
Agreed. So if things are done correctly, there's not going to be a problem.
That's right.
And you're so right. Associations that have said no rentals are allowed. I know of at least a good handful of associations that we manage that if it wasn't for rentals being allowed, they would have a much larger outstanding balance of delinquencies.
Yep.
Because now we've been helping our clients to be able to foreclose, take back the property. The mortgage company has not foreclosed. They've turned around, rented, and now they've been using
the association's
this asset
the landlord. That's right, and they're collecting
to be
rent.
able to collect.
That's right,
and just really knock out that outstanding balance. Yeah, some good points. Well, hey, we need to take another break. Let's do that. We'll come back with more of Where You Live after these messages.